Winslow Sargeant. I am the moderator for this session. I am the incoming chair with the International Council for Small Business. I'm also the former chief counsel for advocacy at the U.S. Small Business Administration. This panel, we're going to touch on Women 2030, inclusive access into leadership roles. This is very important because we know, here are a few facts that we know, that the evidence shows that when men and women are deliberately engaged with gender inclusion compared to only 30%. So that means we have to have women in leadership roles. But let's look at the facts. Based upon the January 2019 S&P 500 list, this is the list that lists the top 500 companies, publicly traded companies. Women currently hold just 27 or 5.4% of the CEO positions at those S&P 500. Now we know that women make up almost half or greater than the population, but yet in this study, in this data, only 27%, or only 5.4%, only 27 out of 500. That's really not acceptable. That's really not acceptable. That's something that we have to work on. And that's why this panel is so important, because we need to raise the awareness. Now, there have been some strides. In the US alone, the state of California has now mandated that 50% of boards must have, that women must account for 50% of boards, of those who serve on boards at those companies. And so there is a metric that's been put into place, but so that's a good move in the right direction. But we know that there needs to be more, that it just cannot just be a piecemeal sort of thing. And so that's why I'm so pleased today and so honored to have an outstanding panel that will discuss how do we make sure that the leadership roles are inclusive. And as my friend said, as a friend of mine once said, that when you think of diversity and inclusion, she likened it to diversity is inviting someone to a party, but inclusion is asking that person to dance. And so how do we make sure that you just don't have a diverse, but you're inclusive and you empower women to make sure that they can be best, to be the best that they can be. And so I'm joined today by Ismail, Florence, Dr. Florence Nisabwe, Shoroke, Zedan, and Chantal Carpentier. This is an all-star panel. I don't see Chantal. Will she be joining us, Analia?
I think I see Kumba here. Let me.
Okay. Well, we'll just start out, and so we'll start out, and maybe she'll join us. And so, so we have this outstanding all-star panel. So I want to start out with Enos. Maybe you can share with us your thought and your approach on what we should really consider in terms of making 2030 a realistic goal for an inclusive access for women in leadership roles.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure, and I benefited and learned a lot from all the sessions. I really liked what you said about dancing, and I think the best way to make our way into leadership role is to prove that we can dance well. So really, if we really need to show our abilities. I don't think that we need to wait for someone to give us this. And I think this applies to everything. I love statistics. I really love statistics so that I can break them. So I remember in my high school degree, I was, I think, the second in the whole history of Egypt to come first in the mathematics section. And everybody was like, what? Mathematics? You're top in mathematics? So I love statistics because it makes you, I don't want to say angry, but really gives you the energy to work so hard so that you can break. As you said, the statistics in the USA, for example, there is, I think, 37% of financial analysts in Fortune 500 companies are women. But if you go into management, it's 12.5%, just 12.5%. And this is just one example. I believe that women's best chances are in having their own businesses and in working on startups, either having their own business or working as a key member or a key founder in a startup, because that's where their passion can show and they can take things into their hands. They don't have to play the corporate game. In fact, statistics show, and I don't like statistics that much, but statistics show that among startup founders, 55% of men want to start their own company because they want to be their own boss. Only 31% of, maybe actually it's more than 55%. For women, passion comes first. And as we all agreed that if you work because of passion, you do achieve more and you become much more of a success. May I share with you some slides? If I can present my slides, that would be great. I hope it works now. Can you see anything?
I'm not able to see it yet, but it says that you have started sharing. I'm not able to see it.
Okay. Share, maybe now, no? Anyway, I'll share my slides from my computer then. And here you go. I hope that will work better. Now, screen share. Okay. So, yes. Do you recognize this scene? I'm not sure if you watched the 2018 movie, A Wrinkle in Time, you may recognize it. I was helping my son do a novel report on the novel, the 1962 classic, A Wrinkle in Time. And reading through the chapters with him, it reminded me of a lot of what we have to go through as women, as founders. So I decided to speak today about wrinkles in the life of women entrepreneurs. And I believe that if we manage to go through these wrinkles, we can really defy statistics. The first one is that life has its rules, and with rules and obligations and freedom is like a sonnet. You're given the form, but you have to write the sonnet yourself. I interpret this as a founder is that when I set up a company, I do it because I really believe in what I do. That if I do it out of passion, I will succeed, or at least my chances of success will be much higher. I will do it for myself and for what I believe in, not for what society, how society will see me. The second quote is about size. That when you start a very small startup, it doesn't mean that you cannot go big. And size doesn't really matter that much. I think this leads me to believe that even if, as a woman, I get only 2.3% of investment capital, VC investment, or if I, as a woman founder, I don't get that much support or that much confidence when I go to talk to customers, I still can make it happen if I really work on myself and my product. This issue, fear, being afraid, runs through the whole novel. And you see these two quotes and you see that they could be really contradicting. Don't be afraid to be afraid. So embrace your fear. But at the same time, if you make a decision under fear, you're most likely not to make the right decision. And I struggled with this a lot. In fact, I started off at age 8, I think. I wanted to be an entrepreneur and to innovate. I had the idea of having a collapsible car so that we can find parking spots, and this will be a real hit in the car market, and ideas like that. It never materialized, and I don't think I really realized that I will be an entrepreneur, and that's where I want to be until after 2 careers. My first career in environmental engineering, and at that time I was too scared to move into a place I don't know. I didn't learn about business. I didn't know how to become a businesswoman or to set up my own company. And then I moved from that to working in media, a career that I loved passionately. I loved every single bit of it. I really enjoyed it. But to me, it was not, at the time, it wasn't family friendly, and I had to choose my family. Now, I realized that even then I could have started my own company, but I did not have enough courage. I think I only managed to do that when I felt I had enough energy to do it. For me, I don't think it was I wasn't mad or anything, but madness or feeling so angry worked for Meg, the main character of the movie or of the novel. But I believe that the best thing for us, the best way to go through fear and still do what we fear to do is to find the motivation that can overcome fear. What feeling makes you so energetic that you can forget about fear, or you have to forget? It can be that you are so angry, you are mad. It can be that you are passionate about something, or it can be that you do not find a solution for something that you really want to see in real life, and you feel that out of responsibility, you need to work in order to make this available. I think we all need to look for a motivation within ourselves in order to be able to overcome our fear. Another point that also was stressed more several times in the book is about being unique and embracing your uniqueness. I think especially for women, in many ways we fear being different. But again, if we are all alike, so where will innovation come from, or how can we all contribute in our own ways? So I think as a leader, as a startup founder or a leader in any organization, it's really key to be unique and to embrace this uniqueness. While I was talking to my son about the book, and just to give you an idea, if you haven't watched the movie or read the novel, the book is about Meg, whose dad has disappeared in space, and she goes on a journey in time and space to find him. She goes on this journey with her brother, Charles, and with her school friend, Calvin. And on this journey, Meg is their leader. And also their mentors are 3 wise women. So talking to my son and discussing this with him, I kept thinking, would he ask me, how come it's not Charles or Calvin who are the leaders of the trio? But he said nothing. Actually, he totally accepted the whole thing and thought it was very, very normal. And this, to be honest, gave me hope that he does not embrace the stereotypical views of Hollywood or of any novel where the Meg would be the support role rather than the leader of the group, and where wisdom would probably come from a wizard or a man rather than 3 lovely women. So, and I believe that hope is our way also to tackle the statistics. I believe that if we all, not just hope, if we all believe in our abilities to be the exception, not the rule, we can break the rules. We can break the rules of the narrowing pipeline going towards management. We can break the rules of women not getting enough funding. We can break the rules of women being treated by their male and female colleagues at work, or their employees or their managers, as not always good enough. Finally, I think one lovely quote that I saw that I read in the novel: the only way to cope with something deadly serious is to try to treat it a little lightly. And I think this goes not just for professional life, it certainly goes for professional life and for family life. So I think we need to take it easy on ourselves and don't bang our heads against the wall if we make mistakes. It's just a journey that I hope that we all enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ines. That was really great. I should have just said more about your background as founder of Autsera. You're an engineer, but I really like the fact that you've made the reference to A Wrinkle in Time, which, by the way, I read this book when I was in the 8th grade, and that's when my favorite reading subject was science fiction, because I read A Wrinkle in Time. And so so well done and well said, and those points that you brought out were really helpful. Next speaker is Dr. Florence Nisabwe. She's the founder of Foundation Lab in Burundi. We've known Florence for many years, met her at GW October at the UN, and so she's a well-known speaker, and so welcome, Dr. Nisabwe. You're on mute. Florence? Welcome, Florence. Florence, can you hear us? I'm not able to hear you, so maybe we can come back to you after. And so let's go to.
Thank you for having me.
Shoroke.
It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here. I owe a lot to ICSB because I see ICSB has shaped me. So I think that I'm going to put okay.
We're only hearing bits and pieces of your presentation. Florence, do you mind if we just go on to Ms. Shoroke Zedan, and then we come back to you once your audio is better? And so for this time being, I want to introduce you to Ms. Shoroke Zedan. She's with Envisage Consulting Company in Egypt. She's spoken before this morning, and she's a leader for women, and look forward to hearing her thoughts in terms of Women 2030, how we can have an inclusive environment for leadership roles.
Thank you very much, Winslow. I'm very happy to be participating in this conference. It's really been very inspirational since the morning, since this afternoon, where we had some amazing speakers. And really, I think that this period has given all of us an opportunity to be able to showcase, what we can do as women, as a group of women with varied backgrounds and varied degrees. I'm going to speak from two different perspectives. First, I have a development background, And it's very interesting to see, you know, how the type of leadership that needs to be formulated in order to achieve certain goals when you're working in the field of development, because you're always putting ahead the whole concept of change management. How are you going to change how people react? How are you going to change people's mentality towards a certain practice? How do you make them actually take ownership of anything that you do? So it's very often that as women leaders, we have to start thinking out of the box. And sometimes thinking out of the box is not something that is very comfortable for those that are maybe higher than you in the hierarchy. But at the end of the day, you do get results. And thinking out of the box requires that you always know who your audience is. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to a decision maker? Are you talking to, you know, local communities? And accordingly, you start acting. And it sometimes needs to, you know, be just very, needs to come natural. It does not always require a pen and paper. It doesn't always require that you move according to plan. So when you look at entrepreneurship and you look at, you know, what needs to be done in terms of the different types of support and how we can support women, this type of conference or this type of initiatives that are being taken, in my personal opinion, is something that is very important. It's important that we're able to share with different women across all sectors, across all segments, you know, the opportunities that lay out there in order for them, you know, to take that first step and have the necessary support that sometimes they may not find within their communities or within their families, especially in more conservative cultures. And the other side, which now I'm doing, which is more private sector, is, you know, being able to be forthcoming, not to be afraid, to have the necessary confidence to take that first step forward and do what you believe is right, even if it means, you know, it's not going to make many people happy, but you know that at the end of the day, you know, they will be able to see the bigger picture at the end of the day.
Okay, great. Well, that's helpful because we need to look at both the private sector and the public sector, and with your experience with development and now in the private sector, I think that we will see more women. We hope to see more women like yourself, or just follow after you and just follow and just learn from your experience as well. And so thank you for sharing. I'll have some follow-up questions for each of you. But the next speaker, and I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Chantal Carpentier. She's the chief of the New York office of UNCTAD. Dr. Carpentier is she's a well-known leader. She's a triathlete as well, so she leads both in physical, but also both in educational and in development. And I'm so pleased that she could join us today to share with us best practices, or what we should really consider, what we should think about, that if we want to achieve an inclusive access in leadership roles 2030, she'll help us think along these lines. So Dr. Carpentier, welcome.
Thank you so much, Winslow. It's such a pleasure to see some good old friend on this panel. I kind of decided after listening to Ms. Ismail that I'm not going to use my talking points or my notes prepared. I guess I'm just going to ad-lib it. And, you know, when I look at the name of this session, both inclusive and access means a lot together. And many of you know me, I miss SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, because I supported their negotiation at the UN with bringing the voice of non-state actors into the negotiation. And two of the major guidelines or principles for the SDGs are inclusiveness. So one of the principles to leave no one behind and start with the people that are left behind the most first, and also access. So what is SDG 2 on hunger and 3 on education and 4 on health and 3 on health and 4 on education? They're all about access, affordable access to the basics needs of education, health, food, waters, electricity, but in an affordable way. So it's very interesting, and I would like to highlight that the fact that the SDGs were actually born thanks to two women in foreign services of 2 Latin American countries, including Colombia. And this brings me to my next point, which is oftentimes many of the programs we're doing right now, especially since this year was the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Plan of Action. So Beijing is the first major conference on women and rights. And from an UNCTAD point of view, we approach it from the economic empowerment of women. Because, and this is something my Secretary General said, I've said, many of us have said, yes, the SDGs, we need to support women because there's a lot of area where they're basically do not have equitable access to resources that men have. And on the other hand, women are probably one of our best agents to achieve the SDGs. So it's the economic empowerment of women, but also their representation in decision making. So in the case of the SDGs, they would not be here if it was not of 2 women that managed to break that glass ceiling, which, by the way, I'm glad to report, and we need to highlight that Kamala Harris just broke another big glass ceiling for us. So so my role and what I want to get at, Winslow, is, or my take on this is that we need to support women, and women need to support women. Men need to support us as well. But what I've been trying to do over the last few years in supporting the SDGs, especially SDGs 5 and 10 on equality, is to support younger women and mentorship. And I was tried to know or realize that they have the same questioning, the same anxieties and concern that I had 30 years ago when I wasn't at their point in my career. And so this means, and this is confirmed by actually the Beijing platform, where instead of celebrating the advancement of women and their right and their role in society, we actually pushing back against the pushback. And so it's kind of sobering to hear that. We also, in the midst of the worst economic crisis we had since the Great Recession and the worst pandemic since the beginning of the century. And unfortunately, because of the situation in which women were, which are more represented in the care economy, which is less well paid, where girls are the first one that will be taken out of school, in an area where parents can't afford anymore to send kids to school, or they don't have enough computers to put their kid on a remote learning. And women actually being the one that quit their job or reduce their hours during this pandemic because they just can't cope with kids being at home, trying to support them, do their job, and do everything else. So I think we're talking here at a very sobering moment in terms of the role of women. And so I want them to move to the role of women in this pandemic. Our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohamed, for many of you that may know her, have actually mentioned that it is or not a coincidence that the countries to seem to be better in controlling this socioeconomic impact of this COVID-19 are those led by women. Is it pure coincidence, or is there something to be said here? And also in the socioeconomic response to the COVID-19 that the UN is providing to developing countries, because developing countries are much hardest hit, we are focusing for the first time, Winslow, on the micro, small, medium enterprises, and especially on those led by women, because of the factors I mentioned earlier. And so finally, we are seeing, not enough, but we're seeing more of the stimulus packages being put out there, being put towards women, being put towards MSMEs, though it's, as I said, definitely not enough, but it's more than it was in the previous crisis in terms of MSMEs, especially. But in terms of women, we need to do more. Otherwise, we're going to get out of this crisis with more women further behind, as well as if government do what they typically do after spending a lot of money on this COVID-19, we're now up to $13 trillion that our global government have put forward. They're going to put austerity measures, and austerity measures do impact women the worst, because austerity measure means you're cutting on the care economy. You're cutting on education, on safe transport, on help for the elders and other support. And the women are the one that provide those free services, and therefore they're the one that will be even further further impacted. So austerity measures are even more regressive, and we need to avoid them at all costs. So this is, Winslow, the thing that are really, really attracting my attention right now and making me really anxious about the future. So what does that mean as a leader, as a woman? I'm mentoring several women at the UN, younger women, because I do feel that we need to give back, and they want to hear from us. Women that were in this situation, their questions seem sometimes so basic. So if I don't have a good boss and he's not listening to me, and he's mansplaining, and he's interrupting me, how am I going to learn to be a good boss if I don't have that model? And these are very good questions. And of course, we discuss this, and I provide them advice such as, well, let's see where you could play a more leader role if your boss is not going to let you do that. Perhaps in a outside of your workplace, by giving your time in a board or at an NGO, so you can actually have your skill put forward. I've been talking a lot about this whole thing about mansplaining and women being interrupted more than any other people, than men, actually 5 times more than men in general in a meeting. What women say being less credible. The advantage that we have right now, and thankfully that young women now have coming to the professional world, is that we know that. So we can actually react to it in a better way than when we didn't know it. And I'll give you a very funny fact. When I was younger, I thought that people in a meeting, I would say something. I thought it was a good idea, but nobody reacted. The guy next to me says the exact same thing, and everyone's like, oh, that's a great idea. We should do it. We could bid on it. And it's like, oh, and all this time I'm thinking it's because I have a French accent and people don't understand what I mean. It's only when I was about in my 40s, I realized, no, it's because I'm a woman that it doesn't have the credibility. So we as women need to also help each other. So if I say something, also proven by science, that if I horn my own, talk my own horn, it's not going to be perceived very well. Though men can do it, and it's going to be well perceived. And therefore, I could ask my dear friend Florence here, or my friend on here, to say, oh, but Chantal has a great idea. This is great. And I then say, oh, Florence's idea is wonderful. So we need to support each other that way. We also need to encourage our young girl to go in the growth sectors. Women do not own less than 10% of the wealth on this planet, and we're not going to have a voice until we own more of the asset. So we need to encourage our girl to go into these growth sector. There's many of them now propelled by the digital economy, and they also will invent and innovate and create and manage differently than men. Not better necessarily, just different. But in terms of all the innovation that we need to achieve the SDGs, all the realignment of the finance that we need to achieve the SDGs, if we have more women and more diversity in this decision making, not just women, we are more likely to get there than if we don't. So I'll stop it at this, Winslow, and look forward to any questions or comment or exchanges. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chantaline. That was awesome. That was great. You touched on a number of topics, and I want to open this session up for questions. We're still waiting for Dr. Florence Nisabwe. She's having some network problems, but if she joins us, we'll make sure that she gets a chance to share her thoughts as well. But on the subject of 2030 and how to connect, has Florence joined us? I don't know if she joined us, but on the subject of 2030, you mentioned important thing of mentorship and networks, and how does one advocate for the promotion of women from the beginning, and so that it's a top-down commitment to gender equity, but also when it comes to succession planning. One thing we know is that these positions that are held, you cannot hold them forever, and there needs to be a succession planning that is put into place. And so how do we get women now to be one in the pipeline, make sure that they understand how to move up, but also be aware that there are positions coming available so that they can be considered. And also, while they're doing that, the stretch assignments so that they have the expertise and the visibility to move into these positions. I know I've said a lot, but I open up the portals to have a discussions on how do we move the ball forward.
I can start if you want.
Yes.
Thank you, Winslow. So the two things come to mind. One of them is the experiment. So I was at the Summit of Women, and they had a men panel. And basically, they were all exchanging among themselves. They were the only men, they like thousands of women. And they were exchanging among themselves how to do it. And basically, one of the best practices that came out, and since then I'm convinced, was you have to have actually men that are middle managers, that part of their job description and pay and compensation is to scope the mid-career women that have a lot of talent and potential, and it's part of their job to reach out to them, encourage them to apply for the job at that very level, so they will actually start making their way up. We all know women won't apply to a job unless we have 90-some% of all the criteria. Men will apply that 70-some%. So they need to be encouraged and shaken and thrown in and pushed and nod a little bit, and we do it to ourselves a little bit. It's part of our problem, right? So that seems to work, to have mid-level men that is part of their job description to do it. Top leadership. Look at the UN. When the Secretary General Guterres came in 3 years ago, he basically said, we will achieve parity at the top level. And he did. So basically, what did he do? He said, if you're going to provide me name because he's the one that made the decision at this level, and usually you send 3 names of the 3 top candidates, and you recommend the one that you want. And he basically made it clear, if you were going to recommend a non-woman, you better make sure it's clear why you didn't choose the woman. And that start a whole new type of conversation that you didn't have before. And this whole idea of, oh, but there's no women that are qualified, we can't find them, that start to disappear as well, because you are forced to have women in these top 3. So you will do the type of recruitment that is needed. You will advertise in the right places. You would use the right language and that would attract the right women and the women that you want. So I don't want to dominate, but I just start the discussion.
Okay, great. Well, that's helpful. Let's go with Inas. Since you're an engineer, you're a founder, you're focused on autism, which is a childhood disease. Huh? I'm sorry.
SDG, I'm saying SDG, we're focused on
SDGs. And so you were at a very early age, you were math, you recognized your talents in math and you did well and you went and you kept going. What are some of the best practices that you mentioned from A Wrinkle in Time, that you can't be fearful, you have to reach out, but from what are other things that we can do that you've since learned, especially with networking with women, but also in encouraging those who are in leadership positions to embrace gender diversity? What are some of the things that we can learn?
You mean in startups or generally?
Well, just in generally in startups, because it has to do with funding and who's the CEO and who's the C-suite. It's just who's in the C-suite and who are the leaders.
Okay, brilliant. I believe that it is very important to allow women to work with women in all women team. I believe that women thrive in all women team. And I don't see a problem of having women engineers work, like especially if the company size allows or a university research team allows, because what I've observed, and I think what research proves, is that once the team has women and men, there is some sort of in a way, things split into men doing more the technical stuff and women do more of the admin stuff, which is like writing the minutes and I am not belittling this. I'm just saying that they end up not using a lot of their technical abilities. Of course, I believe in policies, but I think that we as women need to change our luck. I think you need to have power in order to change your luck. You cannot wait there and expect that a manager, a male manager, who subconsciously even, without maybe not realizing it, doesn't really believe in your abilities. I will tell you an example. When I have my co-founder is my husband and I'm the tech person, he's the more contractual and rest of the business. And whenever we meet someone, we're interviewing even a software engineer, as soon as we start talking tech, he looks at him. Subconsciously, he doesn't even, I don't think he even realizes it. The lovely bit is that my husband tells him, okay, when you start talking tech, talk to her. I love it. but what I'm saying is I proved that because I proved that I can work in this area, right? So, but this is the stereotypes, this is the how people think, and I believe that we need to change it by proving ourselves and by working more and more with women who trust women and who give them chances. I'm not saying that men do not support women. Don't take me wrong. There are many men who support women. But I say it must be in our hands. Not wait for someone to do it to us.
Great. Well, that's very, 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 very helpful. Shoroke, you've worked in many different levels, and you've taken on some very difficult assignments. How does that play? What role does that play in terms of advancing it, especially taking on these assignments, which could put you in an uncomfortable position, but yet the pathway to leadership sometimes may take you through that. Maybe you can share with us what has helped you as you took on these assignments and still was able to thrive.
First of all, definitely you need to take a deep breath, and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel intimidated, but it's not okay to let this intimidation that's in front of you, to overpower what it is that you have your sight on. And I think that it is really, really important not to lose, sight of what it is that you want to achieve. You have a specific goal, you have your KPIs, and this is what it's really all about. There are going to be hurdles every step of the way. You will meet all sorts of people, different people, you know, those that look at you and you know, think because you know, you have a pretty face, you don't have a set of brains on your head, or and that happens a lot. Or those who are just have this culture of, you know, male domination. But the reality is that there is not a single person. There's not a single person that, or a single female leader that I know that has never been able to overcome what a male dominant business calls a hurdle, or an issue, or something that is complex. On the contrary, I think that our issues, or what we see as hurdles, are far more, you know, way high up there than what many of our male colleagues look at. And often, you know, people misinterpret being humble or being quiet or being kind to your colleagues or to your subordinates as lack of strength, when in reality it's really not. It's just, this is not the time. We know when it is time to show our strength, and we know when it's time to speak, and this doesn't really happen often. On the other hand, you know, if you do not have you know, the right setup, as Chantal was saying, that the Secretary General came in and you know, this was his agenda, to create equality and parity and so on and so forth. If this does not exist, if this mentality doesn't exist, then, you know, you're gonna have to keep on battling through, making sure that at least you are setting up the right kind of environment for those that will be taking over or will be taking your place, like fellow female colleagues, that will make them comfortable enough to excel and to be creative and to really enjoy, you know, the job that they're doing, even if they took this job because they had to, and maybe not necessarily they had the luxury of creating their own business, basically.
Okay, that's great. Such words of wisdom. I'm going to open up the chat line to questions, but before I do, I want each of you to give advice to your younger self, right? Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self to say, you should have done this, you shouldn't have done this, starting with Ines? You're on mute.
I would have told myself, feel the fear and do it anyway. I would have started earlier.
Okay, great.
Yeah, go faster.
Okay, go fast. Chantaline.
Go fast.
Advice to your younger self.
Yeah, just ignore people that underestimate you. Just keep going.
Okay.
They'll realize shortly enough.
Shoroke, younger self, what advice do you give?
I would say always go with your gut instinct, because it's always right.
Okay, great. I'm looking at some questions right now. Please, if you have any questions, please make use of the chat feature so that we can make use of this esteemed panel, because I'm really excited. I'm learning so much. It helps me because I serve on a number of boards focus on women entrepreneurship, and so by having this discussion, there are some of us who are allies who would like to help. Yes, yes,
I
Ines?
have a question from Shoroke about what the qualities that I felt that were very helpful when I set my startup, or I co-founded my startup. And I think it is humbleness. I believe as a founder, you really, really need to be humble. And if you start not being humble, you will learn to be humble, because it is really like raising a child. And every day you face new challenges, you enjoy them, but you learn a lot, and you learn that you need other expertise, that you learn to ask for help and support. And I think this makes a great, helps really achieve success.
Yeah.
Dr. Winslow, I have a question.
Yeah.
And then I'll set it up here because it's
and
a
then
difficult question.
you'll have
Right?
speak.
And,
okay.
Right. But what we have seen clearly in the COVID-19 crisis, that women leaders around the world, I'm thinking right across, that comes to my mind is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Okay. And the remarkable work she has done to handle COVID-19 in times of crisis. There's a difference between leadership and management here. I want to ask maybe you, and then you can ask the panelists, is what is in their eyes the difference between a woman leader and a woman manager? And how do they make that distinction? And how do we move forward to promoting more women leaders than maybe women managers, which is clearly maybe there's a difference there. But I'll leave it to you to ask that question.
Well, that's a really good question. And so I open up to the panel. I also want Miss Zedan, you've raised your hand, and so after they answer, then you'll get a chance to ask your question as well.
So maybe I can start.
Yeah, Shoroke, maybe you could answer.
I can start with a response to Ayman.
Yes.
So, you know, the thing about being a woman leader is, and the difference actually is actually just, you know, always being there and being supportive, being able to see the talents of those that are around you, and not having an issue, you know, in helping them excel and taking it one step further. It's never ever about, you know, it's not a competition. It's and this is what differentiates being a leader from being a manager. You know, giving this humble aspect of certain things, and at the same time, you know when you need to step in and sort of rein everybody back to where they need to be.
Okay, great. Anyone else who want to address the management versus leadership question? Okay, all right. Chantal, do you have any?
I knew Ines going to go too.
Yes.
So I guess for me, a manager makes sure things get done, and they're, you know, so that's the manager. But, you know, everybody can be a manager pretty much. But a leader is different. You set the vision and you transmit your passion and so that your team not only just do the task they have to do, but they basically give you their supplementary time and mind to be able to achieve your goal, because they understand your vision, they read you on it, and they share your passion, and you manage to do that. That's the difference for me.
Okay, let's go to Ines.
Well, what you've said was so beautiful, but I will throw in my 2 pennies. I believe that as a leader, you want to, I don't want to say invest as in money, but invest as in nurture your team's abilities. You care about increasing their skills, not just because that helps you, but also for them. So you help them grow, and once you help them grow, they also help you grow. I think you grow together, really, and not
Okay.
metaphor.
Great. Well, we have one question, a quick question from Ms. Zedan, and then I want to pass the baton to Florence. She's able to get her network ready, and we really wanted to hear her thoughts, especially coming from Burundi. But Crystal, please ask your question, and Crystal.
Okay,
and
no, thank you for this little time. It wasn't a question, it was an answer. The former question you asked, what advice would you give to your younger self? And I was, to me, it would have been to be more comfortable about not knowing, and not, even when you don't know, be sure that by doing, you will learn enough to be good. And this is what I was telling to myself. And just something, I want to ask a question to the panel. Don't you think that the problem, or one of the main issues for women is also the way people consider or see powerful women? I can feel in my experience that powerful women afraid people, afraid their family, afraid their husband, afraid sometimes even their kids, because they might think that they're going to lose their mom. And this is something that in my experience, I always have to deal with my power and my sweetness at the same time. So I can always keep people around me. Is that something that talks to you?
Well, that is a great question. I'm going to ask Florence to weigh in here because she's been waiting. And then if we have a little bit of time, I think that we're going to try to address that. How do powerful women get pigeonholed into bad people sometimes because there's a fear of power? But Florence, the floor is yours.
I think she still has some technical issues.
Yes, I still think she has some network problems. So there's
the question is, can women be powerful at the same time sweet? Or if you're sweet, you're not powerful, or if you are powerful, you're not sweet, or can you be both powerful and sweet? That's a very good question here. So
I think I heard Florence. Let's give her one more chance. Florence, can you speak? Maybe there's a delay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there is a delay. I think that we're going to have to probably try to do this another time, Florence, because there's only about a minute left.
Network trouble, but I think that.
Yes, the network connection is bad. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do this another time.
Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Florence, we could try tomorrow. We could try tomorrow in
trouble. So sorry about that. Yeah.
Florence, we could try tomorrow. Don't worry, we could add you in another panel because tomorrow we have a couple of spots. So I will try that.
Okay.
This is another example, Winslow, of how women get left behind because women use the internet less, have less access to connectivity, and therefore in this world is going online more and more, women, and especially the women in developing countries, do get left behind even further. Just another example. Nice to see you, Florence. Anyway.
Well, that's well said, and we're going to have to wrap up this panel, but I really do appreciate each one of you spending time sharing with us best practices and educating us in terms of what we need to do and what we should be mindful of going forward, and especially speaking to your younger self, because there are those who are on this, who are part of the panel, but also part of the attendees who need to hear that reassurance. So I just want to thank you again. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Winslow, and thank you everybody for the session today. I want to just talk a little bit about the agenda for tomorrow. And it's we start off at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. and Geneva time. And as we start with a very, very, very important session, and it ties to what we're ending here with how do we move forward, is women in STEM. And then after that, we have another 4 sessions here: climate change, smart solutions from women practices, and then women in the health industry fighting COVID-19, and then youth women entrepreneurs. And then we finally have a closing ceremony here. So we're wrapping up a fantastic day of sessions here. This was incredible. I want to thank the conference chairs that we started out this morning here. I want to first of all, let me just make sure that I got everybody here. I want to thank Nalia Pastran, Ines, Shuru, Dia for a great session this morning. If I forgot anybody, I apologize here, but I want to also thank all the moderators. And finally, I want to thank all the speakers. And you've been fantastic. We've learned a lot. There's a lot to be done yet here, but we have one more day tomorrow. So we continue on. Please stay safe. And thank you for joining the first WE event, Women Entrepreneur event. And Aliyah, I hand it back to you for the closing remarks.
Yeah, I think we got a wonderful and amazing highlights for this first day. This is our first ICSB Women Entrepreneur Conference, so we are so excited about what we had today and the panels ahead that we have for tomorrow. So please join us tomorrow. Florence, join us in the session of youth. You will have the opportunity there. We hope that
I will be there.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear. And thank you all for being with us, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.